Thanks so much, and good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We just had a few moments with our colleagues there in the Ukraine, 4 in the morning, doing the tech support, doing an amazing job. I'm sure they've had a long, tough evening and a few hours to go. So thank you, everyone, kind of behind the scenes, for giving us the support to make this happen. Huge thank you to Chris Coulter and the team at GlobeScan for reaching out. A real honor to be invited to put a panel together, and I guess I'm quite lucky with GlobeScan having an office in Hong Kong and knowing Victoria already. We were able to work on this, and hopefully it's an interesting session and gives those watching now and those watching on the video on demand later on a bit of insight into what's happening in the built environment space in Hong Kong. I guess as Patrick is demonstrating for us greatly there, and me to a lesser extent, the image behind Patrick is probably one that most people are familiar with when they see Hong Kong. Certainly, before I embarked on my journey to Hong Kong 7 years ago, all I knew of Hong Kong was that skyline. I'm very pleased and proud that this is now my home city. And it is a lot more than just a skyline, I promise you that, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on in the conversation. So just a bit of context about Hong Kong's built environment. So the buildings in Hong Kong contribute 90% of the electricity used in Hong Kong, and over 60% of Hong Kong's carbon emissions. So it is a extraordinarily significant contributor to the environmental impact that Hong Kong economy has. A lot of that comes down to air conditioning. This time of year, it's in full force. I'm sure all 4 of us are sat in a room that's got at least one air conditioner on. It's pretty horrendous here, and that uses about 24-25% of all commercial energy. So there's some big issues out there within the built environment space, but that means that they are manageable, or they can be manageable. And we'll talk about a few initiatives and a few schemes and a few of the ambitions that built environment players have in Hong Kong to tackle that. So we're also going to touch on retrofitting and retro commissioning. 50,000 something buildings in Hong Kong, most of them old, aging. A lot of work needs to be done on them. So what are the technologies and what are the kind of initiatives that are helping to accelerate the rate of those buildings can be addressed? And as Victoria said, we use buildings, we are people, we are communities. So we're going to touch on the role of buildings in communities, and what is being done, what can be done to really enrich and to enhance the role of buildings for our communities. So hopefully we get through all of that and a few other bits and pieces as well. Just going to give you a brief introduction to our panelists, and then I will let them give an introduction, a bit more in-depth introduction to themselves and their organization. So Shirley is Executive Manager of Sustainability at the Hong Kong Jockey Club. Morning, Shirley. Shirley's been an environmental management adventurer for over 30 years and works to integrate stewardship with operational efficiency. Her path has been a rich journey, which includes both private sector, waste industry, various government roles in the US, and then in Hong Kong as working with a major construction company. Since 2015, she's led the environmental sustainability efforts of the Jockey Club and their diverse operations. She's a registered professional engineer in the USA, a member of HKIE and a BEAM Pro. Hello, Shirley, welcome. Patrick is Swire Properties Senior Manager for Sustainable Development. He's responsible for formulating and executing a corporate strategy across the company's global operations. That's Hong Kong, China, China mainland and USA portfolios. Through engaging stakeholders, setting targets and developing action plans, he leads a team to manage the full spectrum of the company's environmental, social and economic impact to integrate ESG considerations into every facet of of Swire Properties business. I think that's a really important bit, every facet of the business, and perhaps we'll dive a little bit into that and what that actually entails. And Chris, Dean of Faculty of Architecture at HKU, Hong Kong University, Chair and Professor of Urban Planning, Development and Economics. Professor Webster founded the HK Urban Labs, which conduct multidisciplinary built environment research by architects, engineers, artists, planners, economists, construction managers, ecologists, data scientists, and others. So lots of stakeholders and lots of ideas to, to wrangle. He leads the Healthy High Density Cities Research Lab that links researchers at HKU faculties of architecture and medicine, and has been a panel member on the World Green Building Council Asia Pacific Awards and advisor to many Chinese and other Asian city governments on healthy and sustainable urban futures. And we are definitely going to touch on those areas. So welcome all of you. Thank you for joining, and thank you for your time earlier in the week as we did the preparation for this call to make sure we have a good flow and a good discussion that hopefully is of interest to our viewers. So section 1 for us this morning, I'd like you to give a 5-ish minute kind of introduction to yourself, your organization, significant projects that you're currently working on or have worked on, and touch a little bit on the challenges that you face when executing your role. So if that's okay with everyone, we'll go in alphabetical order and ask Shirley if you would kick us off. And I think I got a deck.
All right, thank you, Chris. Nice to see Patrick and the professor here today. I wanted to introduce the Jockey Club a little bit. Let me see if I can get this off the screen. I'm not quite sure how to get that to work. Close that. Okay, sorry about that. So the Jockey Club, what you see there, horse racing is sort of the background of the Jockey Club, but I wanted to tell you a bit more about what the Jockey Club is in Hong Kong. It's quite a unique organization, and it's got a very unique business model globally. So I'm not sure how to get rid of this pop-up.
Shirley, do you want to close it and try it again? That might give it a bit of a refresh.
How's that? No, well, we're not losing anything at the top, so leave it there.
Right.
So I just grabbed a couple screenshots because it's quite a complex and large organization. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of overview. Feel free, I reference it here, to go take a look at the website. The Jockey Club is a not-for-profit. It was founded in 1884 as a racing club. It now consists of 3 race courses, 2 in Hong Kong, 1 in China, 4 clubhouses, which have elite membership in Hong Kong and then in Beijing. We've got about 100 betting branches. Those are sort of like, they probably look more like banking retail branches, but we have them all over Hong Kong. We have over 100 of them. We have office buildings, staff quarters, data centers. It's quite a large organization. And we have about 2.6 million square meters of land that we manage. Looking at how many people, the club is about 22,000 staff in Hong Kong. So we're one of the largest employers. And at these race courses, unlike many jurisdictions, we actually house the horses. We own the equine hospital and the vets work for the Jockey Club. It's a fully vertically integrated racing organization. And we also administer equine sports. So it's not just racing. We look at equestrian events and also public riding with horses and football and other sporting events. So there's 3 public riding schools. We've got a Tycoon Center for Arts and Heritage I'll touch on a little bit later, as well as we operate the public golf course here in Hong Kong, which was kind of a desolate island that's now a thriving ecosystem. So I just highlight there's 4 parts to our business model, and the racing and the race course entertainment. We're quite a lively tourism spot. Our membership clubs, as I mentioned, we've got about 24,000 members of the Jockey Club. And then the responsible wagering. We're the only licensed wagering outlet. And we also commingle with 26 different countries and 60 partners around the world. And then the charities, the club is one of the top 10 charity donors in the world. So it's quite large, the charity donations. So it's a revenue-driven charity, nonprofit. And just to give you a bit on the numbers, we get about 280 billion through the wagering platforms, through the gaming. That becomes betting and lottery revenue. Of that 280 billion, a lot of people think, oh, the Jockey Club is so rich. Well, actually 85% goes back as prizes and goes back to the players. Much better than you get in Las Vegas, perhaps even Macau. But we end up with about 39 billion in revenue, and 77% of that revenue actually goes to community donations. So we're the largest taxpayer in Hong Kong with $24.4 billion. That was in last fiscal year. Our donations, as I said, are among the top 10 charity donors in the world. We gave donations of about $4.5 billion last year. And these funds also contribute to the lottery, which is we administer on behalf of the Hong Kong government. And like I said, we have about 20,000 employee staff. So to house all of that is actually quite a lot of infrastructure. And we can talk a bit about how to maintain that infrastructure. And actually, we've consulted with Patrick Ho, Swire, and many other developers as to how we can best manage this property portfolio we have, as well as the many community facilities. And I think I'll talk a little bit just to give you an idea on the trust donations. Now, I don't work for the trust. I work on the operational side, the revenue generating side that feeds the trust. So I'm representing my charities colleagues. But there's 10 basic areas where the club does contribute to the community here in Hong Kong and up in China as well. That traces back to 1915. And it was in the 1955 when the club formally devoted its surplus every year to charity. And there's a rich history of that, and it kind of echoes the theme a bit today. And it was in the 1950s during the post-war reconstruction, and when there was a big influx of migrants to Hong Kong, that the Hong Kong Jockey Club really took a very active role in saying, okay, what is our role in the community? And really cemented this position of working with government, working with the community and the nonprofit sector to help rebuild Hong Kong and make it a thriving place for everyone. And you can see there from the 10 categories, we are touching every aspect or every member of Hong Kong society probably has some engagement with the Jockey Club after all of these years, whether it be an education institution, a medical clinic, a sports facility they attend, family services. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the environmental projects we're doing in the buildings a little bit later. So with that, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Shirley. Yeah, I mean, as you said, I think the Jockey Club touches everyone in Hong Kong, either directly or indirectly, whether that's through health services, charitable giving, a fun night out on a Wednesday when we get back to doing that, hopefully very, very, very soon. Thank you, Shirley. Patrick, morning. Thanks for joining us. Again, I think you've got an intro deck to pop up on the screen. Great, thanks. If you could give us a bit of introduction into your role and some of the projects that you're working on. We can't hear you, Patrick, if you're speaking. Okay, Patrick, do you want to? Sure, what he's doing. Okay, I've lost Patrick from my screen. Is he still online? Nope, can't hear you yet, Patrick.
What about now?
Yeah, we go. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, my phone saved me. I'm sorry about that. Suddenly the mute function doesn't work at all.
No worries.
All right. Morning, everyone. This is Patrick from Swire Properties. And I'm very excited to join Shelley and two Chris's today, and for this panel to share on a topic that is, dear to my heart and also a core business is about placemaking. So let me share my screen.
Can you pop it onto a full screen?
Yeah, sure. Here you go.
There we go.
Thanks. So just about Swire Properties. I think a lot of friends globally joined this seminar today and not knowing about our company. So a brief introduction. We are a headquartered in Hong Kong, and our core business is on Asia Pacific, Hong Kong, China, and Southeast Asia. And also we have portfolio in the United States and Miami City. We are a developer, owner, and operator. mixed-use development, so-called office, retail, hotels, residential property. So aligned with the topic today, to live, to work, to think, and to play. So this is indeed our business focus. So our total investment property hotels is around 22 million square feet globally, and you can see a lot of these properties here. And what in my background is one of our core portfolio in Hong Kong, Pacific Place, as a big mixed-use development of shopping malls and hotels and residential units. So we're celebrating 50 anniversary. So our properties is turning 50 this year, and we have recently announced 100 billion Hong Kong dollars investment plan over the next years, basically to expand further our portfolio in Hong Kong, China, and Southeast Asia. When we define what does our business do, is that we develop and manage green and sustainable buildings. So it's a core business that we do, and we keep and manage these places to be sustainable, resilient, and vibrant for the communities. So back to the topic on ESG integration, I think it's very core that since 2016, our chief executive has basically rekindled our S vision to clearly articulate our. Can you still hear me? My mic still.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Everyone's still. Oh, okay. Yeah, my colleague just remind me my mic doesn't work. Just let me know in case my mic doesn't work. So basically, all right, cool. So as the vision, basically to be a leading sustainability performer in the real estate industry globally by 2030. This is a high order vision, bold vision, and to support that, we have create a strategy, what we call Sustainable Development 2030 SE 2030 strategy. Basically, to help us to improve, build sustainability capability across the whole firm, and ensure that sustainability considerations are integrated in the business decisions and the operations in the offices of our business. And this strategy, you can see the house on the left. There are 5 components. Basically, as the core of it is this place, because at the end of the day, we are a company that builds, maintain places, and we call this action placemaking. So sustainable placemaking quite define what we do, and so to support that, we need people. So we work on, an inclusive and diverse workforce with health and safety concerns, and also, how we retain and build our talent is a core initiative under the strategy. And partners, of course, we work with our key stakeholders like supply chain, and also very importantly, our tenants and customers. I will go back to that topic later in the Q&A sections. And to do that well, we will achieve two performances. One is economic performance. We continue to provide sustainable long-term value for our investors and other stakeholders, and also building environmental performance. So I will broadly cover that in later Q&A for what we do on the environment to build a sustainable and low carbon portfolio. So in terms of integration, we have such a we think it's very robust and inclusive governance structure. Leading from the top, the board of directors basically provide the oversight of the whole SE20 strategy, and the SD steering committee, which is chaired by chief executive, monitor and guide our actions towards our strategy. And under that, we have over 100 working group members sitting in these individual working groups under the five pillars, which they are basically the think tank and the day-to-day driver to execute, to think of innovative solutions, to implement various strategy under the whole SE 2030. And or down to the individual level, all of employees, they have to align their goal setting and appraisal with the SE20 strategy to help us to integrate that considerations into individual staff. And I'm happy to tell, we have, since 2016, we have set ourselves more than 80 KPIs, and we have achieved the bulk of it. And we've already set some KPIs for the next decade, for 2025 and 2030. We're working on that. So on green building performance, I would say this is a core business. So and in fact, we have set ourselves a very high order target, actually basically to require all our wholly owned new development to acquire the green building certification platinum rating. And also 90% of our existing buildings, you mentioned existing buildings, that's also something we think we have to revamp and continue to maintain the performance, and 90% of them to be able to achieve the green building certification. So up to now, this year, 100% of the new buildings have achieved platinum levels on green building certification, like BEAM Plus, Elite, and for existing building, 96 of them are certified green buildings. So the last slide, and I think if you ask me, the ESG strategy actually help us to raise a lot of profile and also help us to enjoy a lot of benefit. One of which is, is how investors see our business. Is that they rate us pretty highly. For example, like on Dow Jones, we're the first real estate company ranked first in Asia and seventh globally. And on Hang Seng locally, we are a top company of a Hang Seng Sustainability Index AAA rating company. So this is kind of, a trying ourselves to benchmark against the performance with our peers and with the, global community. And that's actually helped us to further improve. I think these are indeed very important. So I'm going to pause here, and I look forward to diving into Q&A with Chris and the other panel. Thanks.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I mean, there's one statistic that you put in there about the 96% of your existing buildings, are now up to standard. It'd be interesting to, when we get to the Q&A, just to learn about how you've done that. We know
Sure.
building a new building in a sustainable way relatively easy. I mean, I'm sure I couldn't do it, but I'm sure it's relatively easy. But that retrofitting and making sure that the old infrastructure, it gets up to standard. So yeah, let's make sure we touch on that later. Thank you, Patrick. And Chris, morning. Thanks for joining us. Please give us an introduction to yourself. And the work that there are lots of different projects and the different hats that you wear at HKU, please.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great to be with you, and great to join with the others. Lovely to see that link into Ukraine just now. So it kind of brings the webinar to our hearts in some ways, and that's why we're doing this. Well, I'm at a university rather than the Jockey Club or one of the greatest property companies in the world. We are a great admirer of Swire, very good practice in every respect. And the Jockey Club, the people often sort of raise an eyebrow at the Jockey Club. One of my closest collaborators here at the University of Hong Kong is Dean Gabriel Yun, who's the Dean of Medicine, and we run a Healthy Cities research group looking at the science behind healthy cities and practical ways of making cities more healthy. Gabriel is just about to move over to the Jockey Club to become your chief executive of the charities, and when he did so, his big justification to all of us he was leaving behind was is moving to become the chief executive of the biggest private welfare state in the world. And that's what it is. So giving you a little bit of a kudos there, Shirley. But we've benefited. University, I'll say just a very few things about the sort of stuff we do in a second. But the Jockey Club gave us lots of money, for example, 2 years ago, to build sustainable rural schools in mainland China, where if it was left to local resources, you just get tin shacks, and some of them not very sustainable places, or certainly not sustainable designs. Where the Jockey Club helps us, along with other charity foundations, to, if you like, donate design to local government infrastructure in mainland China to make it more green and actually more beautiful and more edifying for poor communities. So thank you, Jockey Club. So yeah, the projects that I could just briefly mention is our research projects, because that's what we do. We are paid and set apart by society to think and to research and to generate knowledge. Today, a lot of knowledge gets generated in society, in industry, more so than the university, I'd have to say. So we have to keep up. But we research these things. I think that I'd like to make an initial starting point, Chris, if I may, at quite a high level, that actually cities will never be sustainable, to be provocative. So a sustainable city is actually an oxymoron. It's actually a fact that carbon footprint per capita is lower in big cities than on average for the rest of the country. Very surprising, particularly in some cities. Washington, DC is the very worst in the US, for example. But that doesn't mean to say that they are intrinsically unsustainable, because that measure just captures consumption carbon footprint. If you add in the production carbon footprint, including the production of the built environment, which is why Patrick's firm and industry is so important, cities are just not sustainable. They're forever growing, bigger and bigger. GDP per capita increases superlinearly with city size, so that as a city doubles in size, GDP rises by 113%. It's a scientific rule. It's fascinating. But so does the energy. So does the energy that is needed to build three-dimensionally and to build the metros that allow individuals to have such a low carbon footprint. So all sorts of interesting conundrums there. So what we're really involved in Hong Kong U is all sorts of cross-cutting research that helps us look at that bigger picture and help governments make big investment, big brave policy decisions, if you like, to do things more sustainably, even though we know cities will never be sustainable. There is such a thing as a more sustainable city than the average, better than average, and that's cities are net takers of energy and everything else, but the take rate can be less and lowered, and the sort of things that the best practice organizations that Shirley and Patrick represent are very important in that. Can I have just 2 minutes to run through, and then we'll come back in QA?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another 5 minutes of this part of the talk. So
okay.
please do, Chris. Yeah, I mean, it's fact. I can't make notes quickly enough. So please please keep going.
So I mean, here's the sort of things a switched on university lab, a set of labs or university interested in helping cities become more sustainable might be doing. This is just a snapshot of what we do in the urban labs. We have 15 urban labs in the Faculty of Architecture, and they cross over into all the other faculties and departments, and beyond that to other universities. Green buildings, it's not, and green roofs. Green roofs. So we've developed AI techniques to map the green roof potential in Hong Kong and other cities, for example. You might think, if you look down from one of your global shots, or actually the mountain behind me for viewers worldwide is also Hong Kong. There is another side of Hong Kong. As you climb to the top, it's really stunningly beautiful. This is the so-called Middle Dog's Teeth up to Lantau Peak. If you look down from the peak, Lantau Peak or any other of the peaks, you'll see lots of empty roofs right across in those buildings behind Patrick. As the building behind Chris shows, not all building roofs are suitable for either green roofs for agriculture or energy harvesting, but some are. So we've done a mapping. There are basically 3 constraints to green roof energy harvesting or agricultural greening. One is microclimate, it's a particular building, including aspect, that's the second one. And the third is property rights. That's something we could work on together, Patrick. Basically, access rights and property rights is the main inhibitor for using green roofs productively. Similarly, back on the ground, in between the buildings, the spaces, we do research on thermal comfort using physics models to, if you like, optimize thermal comfort and cooling spots. Smart energy, as Patrick knows, smart energy management at a street level can actually synergize inflow and outflow of ventilation, aircon, and also make that productive for people walking through the streets. Whole city ventilation corridors. We've got another set of models. One of our other labs has advises Hong Kong government, Beijing government, several governments in France on how to create major ventilation corridors through the entire city to improve air quality, produce better overall cooling. One of our students, I saw a thesis for one of our master's students yesterday, had done some work looking at shortest, coolest route analysis through Hong Kong central area.
Yeah, where's that? Let me know.
It's very technical. There are basically lots of them, but if you want to go, we'll probably put it up as an app sometime. You want to get from X to Y with the coolest and most comfortable, then this is the way you can go. AI driven.
Well, if they could do Shongwan MTR to Hollywood Road and let me know, that'd be amazing, because that's a horrific walk every morning.
Got it. Okay, let's be in touch. Another great project recently, AI-driven optimization of wind farms, whether on land or, sadly, wind farms. A lot of wind farms around the world are built on landscapes, such as the one behind me, totally ruining it. But a project we've just recently computed, one of my colleagues, Yulan Zhou, found that if you apply AI and deep learning, you can get 5 to 10% more energy per carbon unit or dollar unit than the typical wind farm layout. So, no, that's quite a big marginal gain for just a bit of computing. So, one more possibly, because you want to move on, Chris. We're doing we're designing a construction waste cap and trade system for the Greater Bay Area. Your viewers won't know, but the Hong Kong is one of 11 cities in the so-called Greater Bay Area, used to be known as the Pearl River Delta. Current official population is about 70 million people. That's the size of Great Britain. Unofficial population is probably nearer 90 million, pushing 100 million within a decade. So this is the world's first 100 million city. A lot of it is yet to be built, and Patrick's company will be involved in some of that. Let's work together on making some of that, the rest of that 100 million city, much more green and energy efficient. So one way of doing that is to reduce embodied carbon in the urban stock that's being built for the next 2 or 3 centuries by reducing construction waste, recycling construction waste. Probably about 20% of construction demolition waste can actually be recycled. And we're looking into the pricing and the institutional setup of a cap and trade system for the Greater Bay Area. There we are.
Excellent. Chris, I was gonna drop you a line on this anyway, but you brought it up, so I'm going to mention it. So I met someone last night who works for a infrastructure firm, and they've got a small part to play in the new Kai Tech development and the new national sports arena. And I mentioned this to them, that you'd brought it up on our call the other day, and they'd be very, very interested to learn more about it, but also potentially to help with some modelling and some real life data coming out of the project over at Kai Tech. So I've made a note again, and I'll put you in touch afterwards, because they'd be very, very keen to learn more.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. Hopefully that's given everyone a bit of insight as to what our three speakers do and the projects they work on, and perhaps why they do it. And so we're going to start to pick some of that apart and go a bit deeper. So we've got 20, just under 25 minutes. So we might not get through everything that I planned, but we'll try our very best. So first one is on innovation. And Chris, you just gave us a great overview there of the working labs that you have at HKU. It'd be great to know about how they work. You know, what's actually involved in setting up a lab, funding a lab. How do you set the parameters for the, I guess, for the projects or the initiatives? You obviously work across different faculties. Like, how do you do that? How do you balance the interests of one faculty against another? Perhaps you could just give us a bit of insight as to the, you know, the behind the scenes part and actually how those kind of initiatives come together.
That's an interesting question. Mainly by, if you like, bottom-up flourishing of innovation. Although I'm a professor of urban planning, I'm very much in support of spontaneous innovation development and city development and evolution, really. The best cities have evolved. The best ideas have arisen from, you know, coffee shop discussions and what have you. So basically, put out a call for innovative ideas. Basically, anybody with an innovative idea that is stunning can pass the elevator lift pitch, involves more than just themselves, has a significant so what question and answer, and it is multidisciplinary, will get seed funding, and then they have to prove that they can get external money from blue chip government research grants or industry or donors to prove that their ideas are good, and then they're set. So it's healthy competition for bright ideas.
Excellent. Okay, and you touched on a word there, which very nice. It's almost like we practice this. Needs to be on to the question for Patrick. So Patrick, I know that Swire Props were involved in the Advancing Net Zero competition in partnership with Hong Kong Green Building Council. Can you give us? Oh, here it is. Look, it is like we almost practiced it. Could you talk us through the kind of where the I guess the original idea for hosting this competition came from, what your expectations were, how you ran it, what the outcomes have been, and if you can talk about some of the innovation that has come from this, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Chris, you can hear me, hopefully. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So we're very lucky to to be able to work with different stakeholders along the building chain, and also with Chris and Shelley, your organization are very important. I think we on the low carbon and net zero journey, we need basically everyone along the whole value chain on the build sector. So we've been able to very luckily support the Hong Kong Green Building Council as a principal partner for this first ever so-called Advancing Net Zero Ideas competition. So basically, it's this hopefully to generate some cutting edge ideas which help Hong Kong to advance to the net zero journey. As you know, Hong Kong is committed to hit carbon neutrality by 2050, but a lot of buildings are existing buildings. They're old, they're getting aged. They need to be ramped up, and also new buildings coming on, a lot of pipeline. So they need to be having some paradigm shift to basically to introduce that idea in the whole development. So so this competition is under that background, it's being generated. So we are inviting experts for over the world to contribute innovative design ideas and practical solutions for two categories. The first one is the future building category, and the other one is existing building. So as from the Swire property side, we basically provide very detailed building operational data collected from two of our green buildings in Taikoo Place. For future building, our one Taikoo Place, which was quite a new building, is completed in 2018. So it's still we categorize as a new building. So data will be shared under future building. And for existing building, as we shared a kind of older building called Oxford House in Taikoo Place. So to the global experts to think of it. So the competition has been very well received. We have over 22 teams, global teams, a total of 58 organizations and companies joining the competition. All of the entries are very high standard. Of the many inspiring concepts, the jury panel has selected these three. I'm showing this as the picture. I think these all information are available on Hong Kong GBC website, and we also run exhibitions around Hong Kong to promote this concept. But I just introduce a little bit on these few entries which are winning. The first one, the future building category, is called Tree House. It's very nice looking, and it's highlighted by large amounts of green landscaping and plants. It features a self-shading facade for the upper stories, as well as there's a rooftop. There's a very big rooftop PV system to avoid solar heat and also help generate renewable energy for daily operations. And to reduce energy consumption, the team think of the large PV integrated overhangs with daily light reflectors, and also a very specialized wind catcher system that can capture cool air from 200 meters above ground. And of course, a BIPV clay solar chimney will be also installed to promote natural lighting and ventilation for the building's interior. So this is how they win. And the second one, also future building categories, is called Taikoo Green Ribbons. And it features, again, over 4,000 square meters of green office space, green open space. And also very interestingly, they got a jogging path, which is go round and round the building. So it's around 1 kilometer long, they propose, which go around the building, and also incorporates a lot of passive and active environmental system inside and out the building, and a full natural ventilation strategy, which is quite advanced for the office to minimize the energy consumption and enhance the well-being comfort. They also think of how the building will improve the well-being, health and well-being side of things. So, and the last on existing building on the right is called the Living Lab. So I think they need to go through a retrofitting process to enable this happen for old buildings. So it features a renewable system. The building basically upcycles. They have some sort of algae in a plant and the building facade, together with food waste and black water we collected from tenants to generate a renewable energy supply of electricity and hot water for daily operations, and through a so-called tri-digestion processes to generate that waste to energy for the building operations. So
Patrick, is something like that? I mean, would you find that anywhere else in Hong Kong? Is that kind of solution and that technology, really cutting?
Yeah, I'm not aware there's commercial adoption, and Europe, I understand that algae system has been adopted for, but not a such a tall building like Oxford House, one Taikoo Place. So so this is quite new for Hong Kong indeed. I think if this can be really executed, so I think this gives us a lot of insight for ourselves as well, and also hopefully for the industry. So I think a lot of design house architect are trying to look into these ideas and see what sort of recipe they can mix together with these and generate some sort of future buildings for the Hong Kong. That would be great, and also the ambition for HKGBC to promote this concept and mainstream it. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I mean, those look amazing. Imagine those adding to Hong Kong skyline in the next. Or when are those going to be ready, Patrick? 5 years, something like that. Okay, so I mean, I guess perhaps at the other end of the spectrum, not all Hong Kong buildings look like that. There is that obviously dominates the skyline. Shirley, I know that you don't work for the trust, but I know you've got some good insight on the work that the trust has done to help improve capacity and to help NGOs and smaller organizations with their greening of their buildings. I know we spoke at length about this earlier in the week, but perhaps you could just give us a bit of an overview of how the trust has been able to do that, and what the objectives and outcomes are from work at the other end of the built environment spectrum. Shirley, you're on mute.
The trust. So I've just highlighted a couple of projects in some of the results. So this is from our last fiscal year. And the club, so solar panels, that's an existing technology, not necessarily innovative, but under the feed-in tariff scheme that government's put in place, it's made it very attractive. So the trust actually undertook a project starting in 2019 to outfit NGO premises with solar. And one of the key parts of this project, and similar to what Professor Chris had mentioned, is it's not just providing money to buy the solar panels, it's actually providing the project team. So they partnered with Carbon Care InnoLab to create sort of this package of expertise and execution. And then they started with 10 NGOs, and now in the second phase, they're going to 25 as well. So it's about $80 million, but it's building that capacity and building sort of a model by which NGOs can help, NGOs with like Carbon Care Asia and Carbon Care InnoLab can come together and sort of form a project team and then go and implement the project with the NGOs who don't necessarily have a Patrick or have the capability to really assess their roofs, figure out what's the right design, how do they source these, how they really get good design and good function. Then the asset, the solar panels themselves become part of the NGO's ongoing revenue stream through the feed-in tariff. So it's sort of making use of their buildings and giving them that expertise to help execute the project. And hopefully then that can be picked up, that model, and expanded to reach other types of facilities, community facilities. NGOs don't typically get money for putting in solar panels from individual contributors. So in addition, there's buildings that are built by the Jockey Club or that are renovated. And so the trust has for many years really pushed the green buildings agenda and trying, when they do give funding for infrastructure, they're not just looking at the social aspects and this, how that infrastructure is going to serve the society or how it's going to improve capacity to serve society, but also how they can make it better. And so many of them have achieved platinum level. And the trust actually, as the professor pointed out, has expertise. So I have colleagues in the trust who are green building experts, and they look at these and they work with the NGOs and the green building councils and providing expertise and getting them to really uplift their ambitions about some of the buildings they're building to make them efficient, because it'll reduce their environmental footprint now, but it also reduces their long-term operating costs. So it's beneficial for many reasons for the NGO community to uplift their buildings. And the trust benefits does build that into the funding that they give out. So it's not just limited to an amount. They really want to achieve the objectives of these green buildings and provide well-performing buildings for the long term. And then the one that's highlighted there, the small project, is 120 schools. These are the public schools. And so the Jockey Club has set up this project with the Hong Kong Green Building Council, again, and Beam Society, to set up sort of a core project team that can help these schools identify what would they need to do, give them the technical expertise, help them find the right solutions, and then the trust will help find the funding for those solutions to get put in place so that these existing buildings, these schools, can be brought up to green building standards. And many of them are surpassing their performance ambitions. So it's just one of the ways the trust is trying to not just give the money, but also to increase the capacity and the skills so that they can perform better. And hopefully these models don't necessarily get discussed. I was telling you, Chris, when I go to some of these World Green Building Councils and things, there's a lot about commercial buildings, which are a large part of our city footprints. But these existing buildings, how do we really address these? And I think these are some really good models, looking at how we do that with the NGO community, the education sector, and these other community sectors. Attacking the rest of the existing buildings, I think, is a bit tougher. I don't know, Tycoon is one you wanted me to touch on real briefly, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just a fantastic space.
This is actually a renovation project. It's the largest heritage conservation and revitalization project ever undertaken in Hong Kong. It's an old police compound, and as you can see from some of the smaller pictures, it's in the middle of the city. And it was a police barracks, a magistrate's court, prison, so a multifunctional space. It's called Tycoon, Big House. And it was transformed into a Center for Heritage and Arts. And 14 of the historic buildings were preserved, very sensitively, I might add. And then the 2 new buildings were added for contemporary arts. And in doing the work of this preservation, I actually worked for the construction company before I came to work for the club, who was doing this project. And it was fascinating how the architects and designers and planners were working together to see how do they take this old infrastructure, it's 150 years old, how do we make it more adaptable for people? And so there were pathways put in. How do we add the right kind of, can we add a lift where there wasn't a lift, because you want to maintain the cultural and historic elements of buildings. And also the buildings weren't necessarily set up to support these kinds, but they put in pathways and found really creative ways to make it accessible to everyone. And then in the tenants, and I'll echo a little bit of what Patrick said, when they went to operate the buildings, they wanted them to be housed with tenants of all different levels. So it's not just serving one sector of population or serving a transitory tourist sector. So there's vendors from social enterprise that participate. There's free space for local artists and for community events, as well as very nice restaurants. There's some retail, and then the contemporary arts. Many of the programs are free to the public, and they're really trying to not only look at global contemporary arts exhibits, but also local. So they're trying to provide space for encouraging this sector. So it's the buildings preserved in a very good way, and it's been cited internationally as one of the best restoration projects. I think it has won some green building awards globally and heritage conservation. But it's also the programs that go along with it, how you use the buildings to really reach your community that makes this special. And we've had about 8 million visitors since the opening of every demographic. So I will stop it there and let you move on.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's such a, it does really bring people together, that space. And as well, everyone in Hong Kong will know, it's right in the middle of Central, which is just a crazy kind of, daytime, nighttime, it's so busy. To have that area that is actually quite kind of peaceful and still. I know it can get a bit lively in the evening times, but it's been done really, really well, and yeah, from a cultural and learning perspective, it's fantastic. So I've got this. I'm trying to choose between the final discussion for us to have, and I think I'm just going to do half of one and one of the other. Just leading on from Shirley's point just now about the community use and wider appeal of buildings. Patrick, you mentioned the other day that SWI have been looking into developing a tool that helps measure the intangible elements of property development. Can you just give us like a minute or 90 seconds on that? Because that's been really interesting, because you can with the data, you can measure have all the metrics from your buildings, from your BIM. But how do you measure the intangible?
All right, yeah. Hopefully showing the screen. I hopefully share 1 minute, but you can definitely learn more from the website. Basically, it's a initiative we have alongside with Chris' team in Hong Kong, architecture departments and also consultant to develop this framework with so-called places impact framework. Basically help us to important, what does a great place look like and what does it mean? So it basically involves measurement and some quantitative indicator from different levels. On the second level, places level, basically 4 metrics: livelihood, well-being, vibrancy, and resilience. And we published a report about Island East. Taikoo Place area is an area, as you know, SWI has been investing in this area for over 135 years and try to quantify the place's performance in the history up to now. What does that mean to the community? And just trying to show some metrics they're showing in this report. They'll definitely learn more and take a look at the report. Basically, we try to measure, what does that in terms of the employment scale and the density looks like, and what is the gross value, do we try to contribute to the community, and also assessing, what is the pedestrian accessibility and looks like in that area, how much, pedestrian network we provide to promote walkability to the area for the people there. And on well-being resilience, we try to measure, what's the extent of green space, for example, 70,000 of square open space will be created after we complete the 2 Taikoo Place this year. And a lot of these are, with the biodiversity considerations and the species selections. And also we have been providing, social communities, programs, arts and culture and green activities to engage the community. And also we also assess levels of climate resilience. So this is an area also very important. We may not have time to cover, but as we understand, the climate risk is going to bring us a lot of challenges. So how we actually tackle this is, how we enhance the resilience measures about future flooding, and also how we, build this natural ventilation to bring the sea breeze from the seashore into the Taikoo Place area through a wind corridor design, and also the green space. It's helped us to mitigate the urban heat island effect and improve the microclimate. I think so. These are all the aspects we try to measure, try to understand through that places impact framework, as I call it. So we are now trying that model to. Last year we launched a report on Beijing portfolio, Taikoo Li Sanli Tuan, and in Beijing we also build this model to have another report. And this year we are trying to go into our portfolio in Guangzhou and Taikoo Hui Guangzhou, which we are trying to share more later with you for the results and on it. And I think this is a part of work we are trying to do with the academics, and hopefully there could be some sort of insight to the audience for measuring intangible impact, as you call. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, thanks for that. You just summarized it perfectly, and you did touch on the some nature-based solutions and helping to reintroduce biodiversity. That was the other topic that I was perhaps we were going to cover. Didn't quite get a chance. So hopefully some of that insight, perhaps we can do a presentation on that at Rethink next year, Patrick, once you've got some more results from that insight. So finally, just to wrap up, I'd like you all just to give me one kind of finishing point on what the key considerations are for more sustainable cities. We can't say sustainable cities anymore. Chris said we're not allowed to. So more sustainable cities, and so what businesses and I guess businesses who are not in the property and built environment sector, what can they do to help contribute more towards more sustainable cities? Chris, perhaps if you could kick us off. You're on mute, Chris.
The answer that was coming to mind as you started that was definitely not at the end consumer. So I was going to say, sorry, the further up the supply chain you can get, the better. So if anybody, consumer, producer, government, industry, philanthropist, has an input, get there at the earliest point to influence the shape of things in the future, the shape of a project.
Wonderful, thank you. Shirley?
I guess I'd point out, and it was echoed through many projects, we do collaboration. It's bringing the partners together. These NGOs have a wealth of insights in the community needs as well, partnering them with great organizations like the Green Building Councils or industry, and can yield some fantastic things. So I think bringing this partnership and collaboration to the fore.
I agree, absolutely agree. And Patrick? Oh, Patrick, we can't hear you.
All right. Yeah. Just want to share this interesting graphics. As back to the topic, if I can choose one topic that we have to set ourselves more in depth into would be climate change. And this is a campaign that we launched a few years, fighting climate change, and we're calling basically everyone. Same as Shirley's message, right? So we need our tenants, we need our communities members, we need our suppliers, we need our partners and academics and NGOs together. We need to fight climate change, and basically set ourselves to the 1.5 degree trajectory to reduce our emissions as soon as possible. And I think that would be where our future hopes, a low carbon and net zero future. I think that needs everyone's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your insight this morning. It's what we could go on for another hour. Again, thank you to GlobeScan for inviting me to put this panel together. I hope everyone watching has found it interesting, and I urge you to make a donation. You know, there's no charge to watch the content over 24 hours, but hopefully we can raise some good funds to help our brothers and sisters working on sustainability in the Ukraine. We wish them all the best.